Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a topic that's, well, it's pretty heavy. It's highly emotional and honestly super misunderstood by parents and educators alike. We're gonna unpack a behavioral contradiction that can absolutely tear at your heartstrings and leave you feeling completely lost. We're unraveling the complex psychology behind why a child can actually be both the one who's suffering and the one causing the pain. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Phone Call. So put yourself in this scenario for a second. It's one every parent dreads. It's the middle of the afternoon, you're at work, maybe at the grocery store, just driving around, and your phone rings. You look down, you see the school's number pop up, and boom, your stomach just drops, right? You feel that instant wave of anxiety. You answer, and the principal tells you that your child, your sweet baby, said something incredibly cruel to a classmate. They humiliated someone. Maybe other kids watched it happen. You hang up, and you're just sitting there in total shock. Because no way. This is the absolute last thing you'd expect from your kid. The one who comes home and hugs you, who still crawls into your bed when they're scared. How on earth could they do something so hurtful? But then, as you're sitting there reeling, a memory flashes back. A few months ago, the same child came home completely in tears because someone had been cruel to them. It's such a jarring contradiction. And you're probably asking yourself right now, wait, are these two things connected? How does a loving child who was crying from being bullied a few months ago turn into the kid humiliating someone else today? Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of it, we have to look at the psychological breakdown of how a child can actually occupy both of these opposite roles at the exact same time.
Chapter 2, The Bully-Victim Paradox.
Now, what's really interesting about this is a surprising research-backed truth that's been studied for years, but most people have no idea about it. It turns out a huge chunk of kids who exhibit bullying behavior, they're actually victims themselves. And when we look at the research, we see a massive difference between this specific paradox and what we usually picture when we hear the words bully or victim. See, a pure bully generally feels pretty powerful, right? They've got high social status, a tight group, and they intentionally pick targets to show dominance. A pure victim, on the flip side, usually withdraws and tries to be invisible. But the bully victim? This kid is in a totally different, way harder spot. They're carrying the heaviest emotional burdens of both roles. Because they've been hurt, they are carrying around an immense amount of anger. But here's the kicker. They just don't have the tools to process that anger. It turns into this massive, unbearable weight. And without a way to deal with it, that anger just has to go somewhere. So it gets projected outward onto someone they see as weaker or more vulnerable. Your kid isn't inherently bad. They're just desperately trying to carry something that is way, way too heavy for them.
Chapter 3, The Search for Control, Not Power.
So the crucial point is understanding why they do it. Once we get this, it completely reframes everything we're seeing. It comes down to the big difference between power and control. A pure bully acts out for power. They already have it, and they use bullying to flex and reinforce the power they already hold. But a kid caught in the bully-victim paradox, they're doing the exact opposite. They aren't acting out of a surplus of power. They are acting out of a desperate, frantic search for control in a life where they feel utterly, completely powerless. Just think about the overwhelming external factors stacking up against them. Maybe they're constantly excluded at school, leaving them with zero social standing. Or maybe there are incredibly strict rules at home, giving them absolutely no autonomy. Or they're just getting repeated messages, spoken or unspoken, that they aren't good enough. When a child feels like they have absolutely zero say in their own life, they desperately hunt for just one single moment where they can pull the strings. They want just one instance where they can dictate someone else's reaction. Now, does this excuse the behavior? No. But man, it profoundly explains it. If your child is causing pain, that pain is stemming from a very real, very deep place inside them.
Chapter 4. The Secret of the Overflowing Cup.
And this brilliantly illustrates why these emotional explosions happen in the first place. Let's talk about emotional capacity. We all have an internal tank to process difficult emotions and choose how to react, right? But we aren't just magically born with a full, infinite tank. It has to grow over time, usually nurtured by safe relationships and having someone hold space for us. But get this. If a kid is constantly hurt, constantly left out, or made to feel worthless, that emotional capacity doesn't grow. It actually shrinks. They literally lose the internal real estate needed to hold on to difficult feelings. Think about the weight of this for a second. Your baby is a full cup, And when the cup overflows, the water goes wherever it flows. When a child with that shrunken emotional capacity gets hit with a huge wave of emotion, there is literally no room left to hold it. It's gotta go somewhere. Sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's a slammed bedroom door, and sometimes it overflows as a cruel remark to the person closest to them or someone they think is weaker. Again, not making excuses here, this is just a straight-up biological and psychological reality.
Chapter 5. Turning off the empathy switch.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because this addresses the big question I'm sure you have right now. How can a loving kid just ignore the totally obvious pain they're causing another human being? Well, the deepest truth here is that these kids do not lack empathy. They haven't suddenly forgotten what it means to care. Instead, they are forced to actively turn their empathy off as a psychological defense mechanism. This is a huge distinction. A kid who genuinely lacks empathy literally cannot see the other person's pain. But a child who turns it off, they do see the pain. They see the look on the other kid's face, but they actively push it away. And why do they push it away? Because feeling their pain means feeling my own unbearable pain. If they were to actually stop, connect, and truly empathize with the victim's suffering, it would completely shatter their defenses. They'd be forced to confront their own massive, unmanageable emotional baggage all over again. So that disconnect you're seeing, it isn't a kid who doesn't care. It's actually a kid who cares deeply, but absolutely cannot carry the weight of those feelings.
Chapter 6. Asking the right question.
All right, so let's bring this right back to you, the parent or caregiver. Understanding this whole paradox gives you a huge advantage, a critical choice in how you respond to this heartbreaking behavior. Put those two scenes side by side in your head again. Today's awful phone call from the principal, and that memory of your kid coming home crying a few months back. Look at them together, and the connection is just glaringly obvious. They aren't separate events. They are the exact same story. It's the story of uncarried pain. Your child felt pain, couldn't carry it, didn't know what to do with it, and so they just set it down in the wrong place.
When you hang up that phone, it is 100% understandable to be angry. But reacting with that anger and immediately demanding, "What did you do?" that just slams the door on healing. It puts them instantly on the defensive. But if you take a breath, step back, look at them with a softer, curious approach, and ask, "What happened to you?" you throw that door wide open.
Your kid is expecting both questions, honestly, but they desperately, truly only need one of them. They are waiting for someone to help them carry this massive burden. And as their parent, you are uniquely positioned to be that safe harbor. You're the only one who can step past the anger, see that overflowing cup, and ask the right question to help them safely empty it.
So, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. If a child can be both a bully and a victim simply because their emotional cup is overflowing, aren't we all capable of placing our pain in the wrong places when we feel invisible or unsupported? What happens to any of us when we aren't truly seen? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If this helped you see your kid, or really just human behavior in general, a little more clearly today, I highly encourage you to take these insights and start those deeper, more curious conversations.